player, but look at the things that are left available. Ryze is on the board, Rumble is on the board. Basically every jungler, like Xin Zhao, Vi, like there are so many things that have been left
still up too.
Nocturne, yeah, Karma, that's actually a great shout. Karma very heavily banned. I actually think this is the first. Yeah, Karma has a 100% ban rate by NIP throughout this split up until this point. It's the first time it's been let through. Ashe Seraphine, another lane that's up. There's plenty of power on the board. It's really just the playstyle direction you want to go in.
Now, here's an interesting point we've gotten to with more of these dominant 2v2 bottom lanes coming across. We've seen LPL teams, set up more often to be willing to split them apart. We've seen Seraphine split from Ashe a lot of the time. We've seen Ezreal Bard, Ezreal Karma really be split up a lot. So Ashe getting locked in doesn't necessarily mean that Kael is going to get the Seraphine. Zhuo might be comfortable taking the Seraphine away from this Ashe because Ashe Seraphine is by far the most oppressive of all these new bottom lanes we've seen pop up with the Enchanter meta. They'll take the Rumble first, that's fine, but I wouldn't be shocked. I'm a little surprised. This is a hover, but I would expect the Seraphine to be taken away here if NIP aren't willing to play into it.
I think the worry is that there aren't really a ton of good AD carries left that want to play with Seraphine. And I think that could be a bit of a concern. Karma as well is a decent answer. Karma Jhin would probably be one of the more consistent lanes that you can play into it. I know we have a Jhin hater on the other side of this cast, but I am not the Jhin hater.
Listen, I'll save this conversation when we get into game. This is a longer win convo, Kman, that we can have. I am not a full-blown Jhin hater is what I'll say. I am a fan of Jarvan coming online here, especially once you've got the Ashe Seraphine locked in. So this is just a really good, all of your engage is kind of already set up here for AL. The Nautilus, though, with the Jhin, that is a uncommon pairing that Zhuo is looking to throw down.
Yeah, I get really nervous about engaged supports in this meta. Nautilus really the only one that feels super functional, at least has had any relevant success, but playing Nautilus into Ashe Seraphine is going to be difficult. Jarvan's going to have a lot of free engage. You need to be able to match that. You're trying to set up for the Rumble ultimates. I understand the idea here, but it puts a lot of pressure on the middle of the map now for Ninjas in Pyjamas to be able to capitalize on those engages, and we'll have to see where the priority goes in the ban phase. Vi going to get taken off the board. I assume Xin Zhao will be the other ban coming in here from Anyone's Legends. Nocturne, definitely still available as well to be able to play through in that same vein. So there are junglers available, but it's actually NIP themselves who ban the Ryze, not feeling comfortable to either take the Anivia, the Cassio, or something like that into it. But the mid lane pool is actually also starting to get pinched. This is a pretty good start, I would say, for Anyone's Legend.
And this is a clear advantage spot that I feel like AL need to capitalize on. I think Shanks, AL struggled as a whole, but I think Shanks has had some good moments, and he should be very much so favored. I think the matchup that is the most AL one-sided at this current point with their form is going to be in the mid lane. Crazy to say that it's not Tarzan. Still need to get used to that. Nonetheless, hope to see him pick something aggressive. They could try and punish, like you talked about, Kaer's pool really starting to get pinched here. But they took away Nocturne. They left up the Xin Zhao. That's got to be the slam here for Guwon, I would think. What a funny troll. I would have freaked out if that Fizz got locked in. Xin Zhao will be paired up here to provide a very powerful jungler here for NIP, and they'll give that counter pick over to Kael, which I think is smart, Kman.
I mean, you kind of need to in this draft. We'll see what direction they want to go in on the other side. AL has been much more successful playing tanks on the top side versus carries on the top side, even into something like Rumble. You would kind of expect Flandre to go for something maybe a bit more stable. In this one, Sion obviously taken off the board, but something like Cassante would potentially be available. The hover now for Mbessa is actually going to be the lock-in. This is definitely a more aggressive lock-in. This is going to be Flandre's first game of Mbessa this split. There's been a lot of talk about Flandre's performances and how it's not been nearly as good as it was previously. This is a big game for him to be able to follow up on some of those Jarvan engages. Now the question is, what do you feel comfortable taking blind mid? Annie could be an option. We've seen it paired with the Jarvan. I'm not in love with that. Something like a Mel, I think, would make sense here if you wanted some late game damage, but we'll see if they want to go more for facilitation or damage. It looks like it will be that Annie.
I'm glad you brought up Mel, K-Man. If Kaer's got it in the bag, this is a perfect game to flip the Mel R5, in my opinion. It's safe into the Annie lane, and it really makes Hope and Kael, that little bit of doubt creeps in the back of their mind every time they want to click R near the Mel. So I think that would be a great pick here. Don't know if that's necessarily a champion that Kaer is very comfortable on. He's going to lock the Talia, which I would say is a comfortable Kaer champion, but is also a champion that has markedly disappeared from the mid lane pool for all of 2026.
Yeah, it's certainly fallen out of meta in terms of popularity, mostly because there are just a lot of champions that do Talia's job better. Those champions are off the board. Orianna, Ryze, a lot of these, more macro-oriented champions, they are going to be unavailable. I think as an answer to Annie in isolation, this can generally be fine. But both of these teams have a ridiculous amount of ways to start fights. I mean, Jarvan, Annie is really dangerous to try and engage into. And then you're looking at Nautilus and, Rumble and Xin Zhao on the other side. You have plenty of ways to go forward and engage for both teams. The question is, do you have enough damage on either one of these sides? Both of these comps, I would say, are relatively low damage in comparison to what we are normally seeing, especially with things like Jhin and Ashe onto the bottom side. So it's going to be about early game leads more than ever. I'm so glad that we brought up that NIP was a great team in the early game. If they get a big gold lead, I'm not sure either one of these comps really has the damage to be able to fight their way back as easily.
But even if anyone's Legend are in a much weaker state than we've known them for, you mentioned it, Kman, their identity has been of past. A team that is best at executing their game plan from draft to rift. So if AL are going to return to the glory of their split one regular season #1 spot and the success they had a year ago in the LPL and beyond, they're going to have to try and return to that similar strategy against this NIP team. Nonetheless, such a fun matchup to have on paper. The hot start of NIP, the team of destiny taking over Split 2 versus the struggling AL. One of these two ideas will prevail or bite the dirt even harder. And it's time to go to Summoner's Rift to figure it out. Bring me in some hometown Gyos. No level 1, please. Guys. Guys, you're ruining the Gyos. Oh my god. Oh my god, there's a double tap. Kael's already nearly dead. The heal saves him coming across there from Zhuo, but Guwon's going to get heralded by some arrow slows nonetheless. And we have ruined some elite Gyos with a terrible start here for NIP.
Slayer, I know I talk about the support trade for heal on the bottom side so frequently. I don't usually expect it to happen in the jungle. That's a crazy level 1 that is obviously very much in favor of AL, with Tarzan being able to farm that bottom side. We'll see how much pressure he wants to put in to this bot lane 2v2, potentially vertical jungle from this point onwards, but very, very interesting start. We very rarely see level 1s at this point, and I think it's definitely AL that needed to come out on top in that one.
Curious if I don't think either bottom lane ended up missing XP. Both AD carries missed gold farming off of those first 3 melee minions, but I think they each were close enough that level 2 won't be up in jeopardy. But yeah, you pointed out, K-Man, bottom lane has been a meta where it's usually sprint to see who can get to that middle brush first, get the ward down there. It's no jungle pathing, helping jungle get wards down. Definitely was a different start here, but we do see that it looks like Zhuo was the only casualty of some of this XP, as Assum has ticked over to level 2, has that deadly flourish, but Zhuo needing to respect this double range bottom lane. If you're tuning in late to 2026 season, K-Man, this is why engaged supports are not at the top of the meta this laning phase.
Absolutely. It's so hard to play Nautilus right now in lane, and just as we expected, it could be vertical, but Tarzan is here to push Guwon off.
Flag and drag forward, gets the knock up here. Shanks has first roam over. Guwon is going to steal away the big Raptor, but, I mean, you are dead, my friend. First blood gifted over to Tarzan, who punishes the invade with style.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a sacrifice of his own life in order to get the Raptor. It's up to you to determine whether or not that's worth it. I certainly do not think so. It's a fantastic start for AL. Guwon is in a really bad position right now on the Xin Zhao that really wanted to try and take the fight to anyone's Legend. Down 1,000 gold almost already, and most of that being in the jungle. We talked about potentially scaling this game out of control. Kael already had to blow teleport at level 1 to get back after that exchange. Guwon didn't even have flash in that exchange either, so It's really not looking good right now for Ninjas in Pyjamas.
A team that, if you missed it, has been the best team through the opening 15 minutes in the LPL. This is a rare, weird section here for NIP. But, of course, we have a ton of tools, as Kman highlighted through the draft, to create engages, to create early game skirmishes. And we look towards the junglers for a lot of that action. Guwon is still up in Tarzan's jungle, hoping for some camps. We flash bottom lane where a dredge line has landed onto Hope, taking a pretty sizable chunk. Assum not able to get that fourth shot, though, onto the AD carry. So it's just a positive trade there to maybe alleviate some pressure. But they have to be wary that this is now a vertical jungle situation here from Tarzan. And he could be in the bottom lane anytime, any place.
It's not just a vertical jungle. He's a full level up on Guwon, so that level 6 is not going to happen for this Xin Zhao. You're not going to be able to expect any assistance or any skirmishing to be able to happen in the early game. Guwon got to try and farm the camps on the bottom side, but as you can see, Tarzan already refarmed the Raptors that were taken earlier, so the only thing he will have available is those Krugs at the bottom. This is a terrible start for a Xin Zhao that needed to be able to keep his foot on the gas. Both of these comps do kind of want to snowball this game out of control. Right now, the Jhin is doing okay in the laning phase, as Kael will not be able to stop the back, but I certainly don't think that this will get easier for Jhin moving forward, with Tarzan having so much of the priority on the bottom side and that dragon spawning in 30 seconds.
1,000 gold lead here to AL. Tarzan, as you mentioned, going to get onto his top side clear here soon to get that next spawn of Raptors. Bottom lane, AD carries getting back from their resets. The Swifty Boots picked up here for Assum. That is a classic of the Jhin. You want that extra mobility, mainly to buy time around your reload timers to get those fourth shots out. So that is a part of the Jhin build that I am okay with. And Kman, this is where we arrive at my Jhin discussion I wanted to have from earlier. Unless there's a gank. All right, Zhuo missed stretch line. We can
Very well played by Hope.
The point I wanted to make here about Jhin is I hate competitive Jhin builds, but I love the sneaky aspect of the scaling Jhin. We just never really see it. We see these more famine builds. All right, Assum really wants to make this gank work. It's going to be a flash out of Kael. Oh, the flash does not matter from Hope. The dredge line still sinks, and now Guwon jumps on top of Hope. The 3-talent strike gets the knockup, and Assum has himself the kill. Not a good look there for Hope. Got a flash, not straight whenever you see a dredge line.
Man, it's such good patience from Hope for so long, but you have to realize he's just going to sit there. There's nothing else on the map for him to go and do. He can sit bot lane without farming camps if there's no camps available. That is the one part, the one time of the game where you can't be stepping up and making a mistake. And again, you're absolutely right. It's a poor flash from Hope, and it ends up really getting punished. He is very far behind in this 2v2. I actually don't hate the Jhin Nautilus after like level 3 or level 4 isolated in this lane, because you can actually start to push out a little bit more aggressively. But again, it's Kael who ends up getting punished. Hope actually tries to, salvage the play for his teammate, but unfortunately Guwon, having sat in that brush for almost 30 seconds at that point, is able to capitalize on the Prometheus flash, I'll just say, from Hope.
Yeah. Again, I am far from as good of a player as Hope is. Like, I am casting for a reason. I just don't see how you don't flash up there, especially towards your Seraphine. Nonetheless, that is in the past, but now we see that lifeline towards the NIP early game success that we highlighted. It's been the bottom lane, and Assum is now up about 700 gold over Hope and Kael, which really takes a lot of the threat of this Ash Seraphine out of the lane. But they're still trying to trade aggressively nonetheless into Assum.
I mean, it's trading that bot lane pressure for jungle pressure. Tarzan still is in a fantastic spot to basically do whatever he wants on the map. Level 6 has been acquired. Guwon not quite there yet. This would be the timer to be really aggressive after he takes his romp. He's not going to realize that Guwon is going to hit level 6 right about now, but it doesn't look like Tarzan actually wants to pressure out this dragon because of that bot lane priority. So that big advantage that Jarvan was able to get in the early game, this 800 gold, it's not really all that usable right now, as we see a little bit of an exchange on the top side here, but this is really well played from NIP, being able to weather the storm and get themselves back in the game.
Looks like Tarzan may be looking to take his Raptors and respawn Krugs and parry that into a Grubs play. I don't necessarily hate that with how much longer it is taking for this dragon to go down. Guwon, though, actually with the help of Assum, as you point out so well, Kman, we'll get this dragon down before the Grubs spawn, so this is pretty, on schedule for that Dragon Soul win con. Tarzan's actually going to skip his Krugs and his red buff and just steal away more camps. All right, Hope. All right, good hawk shot. So he's going to spot out all of NIP, looking to try and hound him under his tier 1 turret. Let's see if Tarzan just goes right into these Grubs. So, Kman, I'm with you. Kind of give the dragon does stink, but he should be able to secure all 3 Grubs on his own here. So Tarzan's still doing a pretty good job trading the plays of Guwon back.
I mean, it's definitely nice to have Grubs, but I think stacking dragons is very dangerous in this game with the 2 comps that are available. You can force fights around those neutral objectives, and that's exactly what both of these comps want with the amount of engage and just, jungle pressure that they're going to put on. You have things like Equalizer, you have the Talia wall on the other side that are going to be able to kind of make these fights in these close quarters areas even more dangerous, as We get a peek on the Raptors being available here, but it is just going to be that trade. Blue buff as well, going over to Tarzan, so he continues this absolutely massive lead in the jungle. The question is, where does this first gank and ultimate come in from Tarzan? Because that's really what's going to make or break AL's lead in this game. Tarzan can use this 1k gold lead to either shut down Assum or get gold onto one of his solo laners. That could be massive for AL's chances moving forward.
Glad you mentioned ultimates coming online. I wanted to, pick your brain about how you feel this game is transformed now with ultimates, because for me, Kman, we're obviously not that accustomed to the Talia being in the meta anymore. So the one thing I'll say for NIP is this is, like a Rise ult, more side lane pressure, more overload pressure that NIP do bring in with all the ultimates online. But how do you gauge the game now forward with everyone's major abilities being up and available?
I mean, it's kind of a game of chicken, if you really think about it, because you have a couple of different semi-global ultimates. You've got the Talia wall, you've got the Ash arrow that can make its presence known in one of these skirmishes, and so if you go for a play, you really want to make sure it's a play that does not get followed up by something else across the map, and that's the biggest fear, is that AL do have that pressure out of the jungle right now, but NIP are well-positioned to be able to stop a play as Kael gets chunked out. This could be the timer that they want to go for something aggressive with Kael at half health, but we will see. Tarzan has all the resources in the world to make a play happen, and right now, he's just pathing down to the bottom side.
Does have a lot of allied vision towards that part. The Tri-Brush ward there from Zhuo, though, is going to really be able to save Assum and Zhuo from allowing them to play a bit more up and aggressive. Nonetheless, they will back off, suspecting Tarzan is down there. I do love the mind game that has happened in the mid lane, by the way, with the boots purchases. Kael decides to rush the Merc Treads into the Annie, and Shanks responds by saying, okay, I'll just go Sorks. So they're in a bit of a standoff with the tier 2 boots here early on with their build paths.
It's fine. Just whoever can land their abilities is probably fine. Hook lands.
Deadly Flourish into Dredge line. There's the barrier. There's the depth charge knockup. He's going to flash, try and get away from these curtain call shots. 1 and 2 miss, but the 4th one hits. Holt goes down once again to Assum. Tarzan for the re-engage. Flag and drag through. Going to Cataclysm dunk Zhuo in. Make it a 2-on-2. But that should be all she wrote, unless Tarzan feeling that 1k gold lead, pushing for more. The Crescent Guard throws Tarzan into Assum's waiting arms, but he will end up dropping. Deadly Flourish taken there by Kael. Tarzan with that Sundered Sky healing is just too much for NIP to turn.
That is exactly what AL needed to do. This play should be over.
Yep.
Assum respecting the Tarzan re-engage, but that's how you need to play the Jarvan. It doesn't really matter that your ADC gets caught, although it's not ideal, obviously, that Hope gets bursted down before that fight starts. You know that if Jarvan's in the area, you can win any sort of re-engage, and ultimately, AL end up very positive in terms of the gold on that play. It's obviously a really poor start from Hope, getting caught by the Q there coming in from Zhuo, and Zhuo does a great job to capitalize on it. He flashes in here to get vision for that 4th shot as well to make sure they can secure the kill, but at this point, Tarzan's way too strong. He basically just wins the 2v3 on his own. Yeah, he's 2 levels up. He has so much damage going for him right now that he feels comfortable to take this fight even without his AD carry, and he's absolutely right to do so. So while Assum is online, so is this Jarvan, and if you get Cataclysmed, if you're Jhin, it doesn't really matter how much gold you have.
Speaking on the Jhin Kman, I'd like to rectify my previous statements. I am not a Jhin hater of this game anymore for one reason only. I got interrupted a little bit earlier about it. Doesn't matter. Hex Optics is the first completion for Jhin. That's signaling to me this is a crit Jhin, a scaling Jhin, and that was the one thing that kept me away from Jhin play, was the Famine Yomu's RFC rush that made you useless except for CC Kman. That's not what Assum is bringing, so I am back on the Jhin train with you.
How can you possibly expect him to build anything else? He is the carry. This Kael, very pushed up here, very much getting exploited.
Yeah, alright, so he flashes the flag and drag. Tarzan's gonna follow. Seismic shove, gonna whiff because Tarzan used the Cataclysm as that shove came down. Oh boy, scary sight for NIP. Tarzan looks locked in and angry about the 2-3 AL start to split 2.
Yeah, Kael just way too far forward in a position he has no business being in. Assum does have some push on the bottom side, and technically there is no Cataclysm for this dragon fight, but there's so much more power on the side of anyone's legend. I would imagine that this is going to be a pretty easy fight win. We'll see if NIP even want to go for it with Shanks making his way down.
Doesn't look like Hope has access to the Ash Arrow either, so AL are missing a couple important ultimates. Shanks is going to have to be key with this Tibbers. TP is going to be coming across here. Both solo lanes, but Tarzan's going to get the Dragon first. Encore going to delay the engagement from Guwon with the Crescent Guard, though. Should be able to throw hands with Tarzan. When becomes lightning, doesn't matter. Assum finds the shot, puts the curtains down, and he's throwing haymakers. Force shot to the heart of Hope once more. Assum picks up a double, carrying all of the kills here for NIP. This is a 4-0 Jin to open for the Ninjas.
Assum continues to live up to his name. He is dominating right now in Group Ascend, and it's yet another big team fight for NIP. They're down so much gold in that exchange, but they recognize that Tarzan has no Cataclysm. He has no way to be able to deal with Guwon efficiently, so they just target down the Jarvan, who, let's remember, is the entire gold lead for anyone's Legend at this point. He's left alone in the pit, and once that bouncing grenade ends up taking him down, it is free fire for Assum on the back end of this fight. Hope, unfortunately, is sacrificed to the Wolves, being that immobile Ashe, and NIP are very much back in this game. The Dragon going over to AL is good in terms of stopping the stacking from NIP, but we're getting to a point now with a 1k gold lead and 3,000 gold up on Assum, where it's going to get even more difficult to try and fight front to back.
My fellow LPL broadcast team, if you want a free content idea, well, maybe just, okay, Zhuo doesn't land that hook. I think we can, at this point, can we make a collage of 80 carries that have been blown out of early game gold leads by Assum this split? Because the list just keeps on growing, and Hope has unfortunately joined the fray.
Hope doesn't even have an item yet. Assum's got 2 items.
He's got Ash Arrow, though. Bang! He hits it right into Guwon. Cataclysm down. Guwon doesn't even get to move before he drops. TP for extra assurance. All of AL showing up to this play as they invade and push 2 members of NIP back to the fountain.
I mean, I don't know if that's a caster curse because it happened as I was talking, but, I mean, Hope makes the big impact there with the arrow. No items, no problem for somebody who has that much lockdown ability. This is the benefit of having Ashe. Even if you fall behind in the early game, you can still make a lot of plays. Tarzan going to continue to look. No Cataclysm and no Ashe arrow available does make any fight a little bit more precarious, but that's the exact thing AL needed to do to keep themselves in this game. Tarzan is such a massive presence, and he continues to kind of run the rift right now.
How are we feeling about this second item, Serpent's Fang Jin? Because I was hyping up the crit path, and then I feel like Assum just ruined it. Did he really have to be the one to build Serpents this game? I think Serpents is valuable for NIP this game, at least.
I think the big worry for them is they end up getting the Herald here because AL doesn't really have the reset timer after the play they made to be able to contest this. The big worry is that Assum is the only one who has the ability right now to build anything in terms of the gold that they have, and they need that cut into Jarvan because if they don't have it, then he just gets to run every single fight. Assum has to be so scared of this Jarvan being able to dive onto the backline. So while it might not feel very good for the gym, I do kind of understand the direction that they're going in. It just, you know, obviously isn't ideal for the 4-0, 2,000 gold up gym.
Hoya, next threat for Tarzan's rampage path. They're going to flash out of the flag and drag. And Tarzan is paying stops to all lanes with this 2.5k gold lead he is holding on to. But good old Shelly going to come out in the mid lane here. Only 2 plates left on that mid-tier 1 turret. Tarzan still walking his way back down from the top side. NIP aren't going to agree to try and get the mid-tier 1 turret. But they have a valuable mid-game condition to play for. Tarzan sprinted all the way down here, though. Guwon gonna have to flash another nice halfway through the map arrow there from Hope, who is still finding ways to provide value despite his very slow start here. Care gonna pick up the mid-tier 1, gonna use the wave of the wall to get himself out of dodge.
Well played by NIP to be able to pick up a tower onto the bottom side here. It's obviously not a perfect play. You have to blow that flash on Xin Zhao, but Hope continues to be active as long as you're not getting hit by those. Should be fine.
No.
Yep. Oh, Hope.
Oh my god, Hope.
Oh no.
Gotta dodge the curtain call bullets. Oh, second one gonna hit for the slow. Fourth shot gonna find the mark. No! Hope just gets a bit of a haircut. I was curious why Assum didn't just crit shot the turret, but I guess we figured out why.
Yeah, he wanted the kill. Unfortunately, not quite enough damage. Just barely whizzing by him to pick that up. NIP is gonna be taking away this blue buff. Dragon spawning in 45 seconds, so you're not quite there right now, Tarzan!
Nice, Tarzan. Nice.
That's dominance. That's asserting. I'm 2,000 gold up and I'm stealing the blue buff back. Like that's just to try and make sure that everybody knows that he is running the rift right now. And he really is. Tarzan is in a dominant position. He finishes the Black Cleaver. He's going to be so strong for this dragon fight in 25 seconds.
Yeah, it definitely feels like, if you look across the board, right, with first item spikes, outside of AD carry, I like the power of the items AL bring to the table in this skirmish. Is a dredge line forces Zhuo to flash out of an encore, hoping to get the slows here with the Q fully stacked up. Tarzan flag and drag, Cataclysm dunked down on Guwon, who doesn't even press the Crest Guard before Zhuo drops off the map. TP coming through here for Hoya. Public execution for Flandre, not going to find its mark, but AL still hold a man advantage. And it's a rough walk back here for NIP if they want to contest this dragon.
This has become a lot more difficult. It's a massive mistake from Zhuo, just not landing that dredge line and getting caught in no man's land. That should be Dragon going over to AL. Let's NIP want to fight here.
No Encore, no Cataclysm, no Ash Arrow. So some ults have come off the board here, but Guwon really can't make up his mind. Shanks is going to flash and drop the tippers onto him. Seismic shove from 2 for carries, too little, too late. Assum was farming the mid wave, so now he's got to backpedal the rest of his team as he watches his top laner get knocked up, double snared, and taken down by Flandre. It's the Tarzan show, and AL are watching it to try and find themselves this Game 1 win.
It's absolutely the worst of both worlds for ninjas in Pyjamas. They end up losing a man at the start of the fight, but feel like they can contest anyways. They stand around watching the dragon go down, only to lose another member, two more members in the subsequent fight. Shanks could be targeted on the top side, but does Kael even have the damage?
He's going to try, throwing rock after rock. He's got Zhuo coming. Good seismic shove into the stun. The deadly flourish will make sure Kael gets the kill. And now Flandre, he's TPing himself into a 1 versus 3. Depth charge knockup. Force shot to the heart. 2 more kills back to NIP.
Huh? Well, like, what's even the play there from Flandre? You just sacrifice your mid on the top side with 3 members moving up and you go somewhere else. The TP ends up being catastrophically bad. The gold lead is shifting back and forth. I talk about the pendulum a lot, Slayer, but boy is it swinging in this game. It is truly Tarzan versus the world. Anyone's Legend very much have the chance to be able to keep themselves in it, but NIP are fighting back. It starts with a really bad play from NIP. Shanks does a great job to capitalize on NIP standing around and basically just watching this dragon get taken. Tarzan aggressive enough to be able to follow through, and at this point, Hoya, Guwon, they don't really have the health bars to be able to survive in these exchanges, especially when the equalizer goes wide. But that mistake after from NIP, or from AL, ends up being really costly, as now you have a 1,000 gold lead on Kael in the mid lane, and this Talia is going to be a bit of a problem.
Kman, I know you outlined for myself and all the viewers at home that this is one of the least late game oriented drafts we've seen in all of Split 2, right? With the champions we have on board here. But how much of a worry is it, in your opinion, that Tarzan, his damage, his gold lead, his effectiveness in the damage category with it will fall off, and at some point, if this game goes late enough, AL are going to need one of these solo lanes we just saw in topside. This AD carry out of Hope that's been really far behind step up to win the game.
I mean, I'm very worried, if only because the player that has the most amount of responsibility in that exchange is Flandre on the top side with this Ambessa to be able to keep up in terms of landing skill shots and maximizing damage. And we highlighted this in draft. Flandre has basically exclusively been on tank duty, and when he's played carries, it's not looked nearly as good across 2026. This is going to be a big game to kind of reverse that narrative for him. On the Ambessa, he's going to have to find some really good angles onto the backline to capitalize on Tarzan being able to dive through. Tarzan should have the tank stats to be able to lock people down. We'll see who can step up to be able to capitalize on those engages.
I really like this look from NIP, by the way, doing a good job punishing Flandre being TP-less. You had Kael pushing on the top side. He's going to get this tier 1 turret, and you watch the other members of NIP, 4-man, walk in to the top jungle. What did that force came in? I watched Flandre walk halfway through his own jungle, drop a wave, and then walk halfway back after he saw the NIP were out of the jungle, all because he lost that TP throwing it towards the top lane earlier.
And look at the CS difference. I mean, Hoya is up 500 gold just purely off of the waves he's been able to catch over Flandre. That is a big problem. Hope and Kael are kind of pushed into their tier 2 tower here. Do have Dragon spawning in about a minute and a half. That's going to be a massive turn of events. It's soul point for anyone's Legend. They're definitely going to be setting up for that, but you have to start wondering where a lot of this aggression is going to start coming in right now. Flandre's putting it into Hoya. Arrow hits.
Arrow hits. Pulling execution. Down for Hoya. Scrap shield up, but he's just have to use the equalizer as a fleeting hope as he will go down. Hope may have been off to the rough start, but these arrows are landing, and it's getting AL more and more back into the gold conversation.
I mean, this is how you play Ashe in the late game. You just need to make sure you're landing the arrows. It's totally fine that she's down 3,000 gold. Both of these AD carries are fine without being the primary carries. The question is, who's going to be able to follow up on the engage? Right now, Hope is the engage and Tarzan is the follow-up in terms of the damage, which is not necessarily how you would expect this to go. It's a good pick. It doesn't change too much because he'll still be up for Dragon, but definitely something to keep in mind. I want to point out as well, Assum completed the rapid-fire cannon as his third item. It's not going to be a lot of damage, but what it does is give him the opportunity to potentially stay safe before that Jarvan Cataclysm, which I think is the most important thing for this Jhin, is just making sure you're not caught by the Jarvan. If you get hit by that ultimate, the fight is probably over instantly.
Kman, you're right. I just hate the kind of dieting Jhin build that this provides. But luckily, like you outlined, Assum is so far ahead that he actually already has 2/3 of the IE composition components for the IE, right, completed. And once he has that, the rapid fire cannon looks great because he has all this extra crit chance. So we're not far away from Jhin being much present in the feast. But before you can eat, you gotta battle. And the battle is coming towards his 4th Drake of the game. NIP trying to keep AL off of Soul Point. And they are burning through this thing. Guwon, though, might have a 50-50 on his hands. The Astro land on Assum. He has to cleanse it. Guwon will secure the dragon. So he split Soul Drake 2 apiece. NIP trying to run out here. Flash Kael gets the encore into the double tap snare down onto Zhuo, who's once again the victim of the AL engage. Flandre with the public excuse is going to grab Kael. Deadly Flourish doesn't land. Tarzan Cataclysm onto the 2 backline members. Trapped Hoya in place, and Guwon will drop. Curtain call down here for Assum as he's trying to carry at least 1 kill back, but his 4th shot needs to hit, and it won't. Shanks uses the Proto Belt to dodge it. Tarzan re-engages onto Hoya. Good Deadly Flourish from Assum, but he can't get close enough to commit any killer damage. AL split NIP apart 1 by 1, take all of them down to the tune of 3 kills.
AL give over the dragon, but they're more than comfortable with that exchange because they feel good about taking the fight. Once they get the Nautilus with the Seraphine ultimate, it's really hard to re-engage for NIP because their big tank threat on the front line is gone, and so you feel comfortable diving into the backline. That could get really scary if Assum is outputting damage, but he backs off to ult instead and misses the 4th shot. This is what I think the problem with Jhin can be. Sometimes you get baited into pressing R when really your auto attacks can be maximizing the damage available, and we just didn't see that come out of the big Jhin in this fight. Again, the Nautilus getting caught first is fine in isolation. Him going down is alright if you're able to disengage, but he is so much of the disengage in the moment that Kael ends up overstaying his welcome, getting caught by Flandre here. It reignites the engage for Tarzan, who can get that Cataclysm down to make sure Rumble can't be maximizing the damage. The Crescent Guard tries to knock AL back, but unfortunately, it's just too little too late, and who's not doing damage in this fight? It's Assum, who lands 2 shots of the ultimate and no auto attacks. That gold lead was entirely ineffective in that fight, and that's going to be the big difference for NIP.
And also, what Tarzan uses to rub salt in the wound of that play for Assum, the Cataclysm onto him forced him to flash. So now, for the next, couple of minutes, Assum has no way to get out of the Cataclysm, to get out of the trap Tarzan lays. He still has his flash, the flag and drag. Expect Tarzan to look very aggressively to trap Assum in that Cataclysm and nullify him out of another fight that could set up a Baron that could really set this game in AL's path.
I mean, the problem is, like, that's true, and you definitely, if you catch him, you lose, and that's why the rapid fire cannon is so relevant. That's 4-item Jhin. He is so online, despite the fact that he wasn't doing damage in that exchange. If you get these close quarters fights, not the ones in the mid lane where there's a lot of space to be able to maneuver and operate, where, he feels more inclined to just kind of play back. If he has to kind of step up and auto attack, he's going to burst through everyone on AL. Those bouncing grenades might just do half of Shanks and Hope's health bar by themselves. So you have to be so careful about the way that you end up operating in this team fight if you're AL. But for NIP's sake, again, you rely on that damage from the Jhin because this Xin Zhao is offline, and Hoya is also not really at the point where he can take over just yet.
Nope, just 2 items on this Rumble. But they're looking for a pick play onto Shanks here. There is the equalizer down. Kael rides the wall to get close enough. Flash forward. Shanks is going to match with the flash zone, so he doesn't eat the slow. NIP put all their eggs in this play to shut down Shanks. But now he's just going to TP back over to the Baron pit and say, all right, NIP, we saw all 5 of your members going after my mid laner. AL, we get a free shot at Baron.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to call the bluff. They're going to be pushing mid lane here. I'm curious to see what the call is. Right now, they're just late on this play, and Shanks is waiting.
Shanks is waiting. His flank is going to get found out here by these Hex Gates and get spotted by Hoya coming on in, but I think Shanks is just a distraction. The arrow comes down. They're just trying to keep everyone NIP named off of the Baron. What a great call from Tarzan and anyone's legend to turn that pick play bot side into a free Baron take. That's the AL Kman we want to see more of.
That is exactly the Anyone's Legend that we were seeing last year when this team was pulling teams apart in the late game with their macro. Obviously, NIP should not be sending 5 men to the bottom side with Baron available on the map. That is a massive mistake, but AL recognizing that they can take advantage of it with the Shanks teleport is a really good call, and that basically swings the game entirely in their favor. It's been so close. The knife's edge has been very real in this game, and AL might have just taken a full commanding lead.
They still need to navigate these fights with some level of respect. Assum has an extra cloak for crit chance. This guy is nearly at 100% crit. And you talked about how strong Jhin was already going to be at 4 items, but this is where I'd like to present the argument that Jhin, maybe behind Caitlyn, might be the scariest 6-item AD carry that there is in the game. It's just so rare that we see it reach, but Assum still on track to potentially get to that point before this game is over, but he needs to have a real big performance in this next fighter. There's no chance for him to show off the full scaled power of this champion.
Absolutely, I agree with you. This Jhin is going to be a massive problem, but they don't care about the Jhin. They want the bot lane tier 2 tower, and it doesn't seem like NIP are ready to be able to defend it. Once again, they're late to every play.
Thought they were looking to maybe try and just flank out AL and force a fight there, but yeah, they're just going to give up that tier 2 turret, maybe in favor of holding control of mid and this, region of the river with the dragon up. They're going to aggro the Hextech Drake, but going to have to get backed off as Tarzan's trying to flank out all of NIP themselves. They're going to try and go after Flandre. He flashes over the Raptors wall. Kael's looking to chase further, but Flandre, he's distracting all of his team. He has to use public execution to buffer the seismic jump, but Flandre is safe, and now the re-engage onto Zhuo. Tippers down, Equalizer on top of him, but Kael will find that first kill. Assum does get away from Flandre. Tarzan has to use the Cataclysm onto Guwon, trying to get onto Assum. The Flying Dragon hits, he has to flash back out, but Assum cannot get the damage through, and Home gets to sink shot after shot into Ninjas in Pyjamas. Ace Home AL, game 1 over.
Yeah, I mean, a perfect team fight for Anyone's Legend there to be able to keep the Jhin out for as long as possible. Tarzan is a monster. Flandre by so much time on this Mbessa, and now they get to push for free into the base. This is likely going to be game. Bot lane tower's going to fall. The inhibitor will be immediately after that. We wanted to see more AL macro. We got it here in game number 1 as they pull apart NIP until they snap.
Same rinse and repeat plan. They blew up the only engaged tool in IP had comfortable usage of, and then picked off the stragglers. AL won't go for the killing blow just yet, but they've got double supers mid and bot lane. They will cruise on to Soul Point, and it doesn't look like this game gets much easier for NIP if we go longer. Kman, this play, though, does not work as well if Flandre doesn't do such an amazing job stalling and keeping himself alive.
I mean, this is insanely well played from Flandre. To be able to buffer the seismic shove and make sure that you're not caught out there is huge, because if Flandre dies, the back half of this fight can't happen. The equalizer's okay, but you're not actually landing it on priority targets if you're Hoya here, but you have to keep your eyes on Assum. He is every bit of damage. He gets dove on. He has to flash out early here from Tarzan, and then Kael just gets free access onto the backline. At that point, his entire front line is gone as well, because they're all down in gold. And it's a free fight win. If you can't play front to back with this comp, it's going to look very difficult. Hope was so far behind all game long. He is now a 7-kill Ashe with the arrow available, with barrier still up. AL are in the perfect position to be able to end this, and they once again did it through the ways that they had been able to win games last year, which is exactly what we were looking for.
And all spearheaded by Tarzan, who's cool and calmly collected a 3K gold lead and kept it throughout all this game. Both of these compositions relying a lot on makeshift frontline, no true tanks involved. And just look at top side. Hoya and Guwon, the 2 members that really have to provide a lot of that safety. And Zhuo, all of them a combined, what is that right now, 0 for 15 across those 3 members. And that's where it's really hurt for NIP.
It's tough, right? Like, Guwon had a tough early game. Tarzan did a great job of abusing the fact that he was, down from level 1. A big level 1 play ended up being, really the big difference maker in this one. If Tarzan doesn't get the lead that he does, are they even able to survive the fact that Assum gets really fed in this game without the dive potential? That's a big question that they're going to have, and it's certainly something NIP are going to think about moving into game 2 of this series, but for now, they're just trying to survive. Tarzan at 5-1-12 has absolutely been the difference maker. We were talking about it in the pre-show. We really wanted to see Tarzan get back onto the horse. AL had such a bad early game record coming into this series. They were one of the weakest teams in the early game as opposed to NIP. Their early game was fantastic. Tarzan has really led the charge and done everything we needed to see out of the true, captain and carry of Anyone's Legend.
The split 1 MVP. performing aptly to that mark. Arrow there from Hope is going to end up going wide here. There is no Baron push for AL, so they aren't doing much besides throwing more minions quicker into the NIP ranks to try and farm up. Kael's getting some valuable solo time on those bot lane inhibitor enhanced waves, those super waves as we know them better for. So he's going to pick up some valuable gold here. We do have the Jhin on to 5 items. The LDR has been completed, but if Tarzan gets this GA done, Kman, if we thought Tarzan was throwing his life to kill Assum before, it's about to get a lot worse for the NIPA to carry.
It certainly does not get easier. This is where I think you start to regret some of the decisions you made in draft if you're ninjas in pajamas. I don't really regret the Jhin. I know people are going to hate on this pick because it's Jhin and generally people don't like it. I don't regret the Jhin this game. I think the Nautilus has really not found itself to be very effective for Zhuo. These engaged supports just have such a hard time being able to make their way in.
And hunting.
The
Mikhails from Zhuo actually blocks the Ashe arrow as things have slowed down mightily for me.
Yeah, I think NIP are just going to be able to make their way out of that fight pretty easily.
NIP will slowly work their way out of this fight. Yeah, I think we're running on technical. Safe to say we're running into technical.
Oh no!
All right, guys, NIP are out of the fight. They're fine, but now AL are walking towards Baron. Oh God, there's a re-engage.
NIP.
Okay, they've blown up. They blown up Arha. Flandre is sectioned off right now. Tarzan can't get back in here. Tarzan flag and drag forward is the next thing I see, but he's 1 HP. Nobody can kill Assum. Is it Shanks to find these kills? No, it looks like Tarzan does go down. But NIP, they trade 2 for 2 on a straight-up 5v5. They're going to keep this game alive. As it looks like we're back after the glitch in the Matrix. It's a 2v2 trade at the end of the day. But that's a win for NIP.
Definitely a win for NIP as Hoya starts to clear out these minions in the base here. They're going to keep the game alive for a little bit further. 2 for 2 is definitely not the worst case scenario overall. But we're going to get a replay of what exactly happened in this fight. The equalizer is perfect onto the backline. Kael gets blown up instantly on this Seraphine. And NIP just do a good job of focusing priority targets. Once Tarzan dives in and there's not really a lot of follow-up, it's pretty free to be able to make the rest of this fight happen, while Shanks is going to destroy at least a couple members of NIP in the fight. That's probably the best exchange that you could possibly hope for at this point in the game.
You know what the real difference it felt like in that fight was? Zhuo gets to actually engage, Kman.
Exactly. Hey, you know, called out a caster curse. I was just talking about how I think one of the big problems for this team is you draft this Nautilus who's trying to go forward, and he's not been able to do that all game. He can actually start to find these hooks and land them on priority targets. We can definitely see some damage come through. It's all really just about the way that it's set up, and Dragon's going to be that priority target. This would be Soul for AL.
This would really be the knife into any party comeback here for NIP. They found Shanks on the flank. He's just going to look to blow up Zhuo. And with Timbers, the scrap shield is going to end up saving Hoya. Shanks doesn't have to flash out. There's the Dredgeline engage, but the Encore hits onto 3 whole members. And the GA has already been popped for Guwon. Tarzan secures the Hextech Soul. He does throw himself in a precarious spot, but he's got the GA. Guwon drops in the background. Public execution finds its mark onto Kael. Flandre trying to find these final kills. Assum's got to reload, but he gets a big shot forward. It doesn't matter though. Shanks survives. Tarzan cuts Assum down, and there is the dagger. AL behind their superstar jungler will find themselves a 1-0 series lead.
We say that, but they are continuing to take jungle camps. It looks like they're pinging onto mid-wave. Baron could potentially be the option for them here. We'll see if they actually go for the end. They've done a lot of different pings on the map. For now, it looks like it's going to be that mid lane push, but anyone's legend. Playing this fight as well as you can. Shanks ends up finding that huge flank onto Hoya, and that immediately eliminates the fight because Guwon is just bursted down trying to steal away the dragon. There's no re-engage, and anyone's legend, after a precarious start, ends up using their level 1 advantage to push down the base.
Nexus turrets burn through like tissue paper. Guwon respawns too late and will drop as the final kill over to anyone's legend. Some fights got murky. Assum had a lead, but Assum's lead falls short. AL lead the series 1-0.
AL get it done, and they really had control over that entire game number 1. They did everything that they were supposed to do in that one. They obviously make a couple of mistakes in the mid-game. NIP actually have a gold lead for a good amount of time. We're going to get to talk about that when we see that classic LPL gold graph, but ultimately, they had the comp that ended up performing better, and what a game from Tarzan. I mean, we wanted to see the MVP re-step up and really cement himself again as one of the top tier players in the LPL. I think he absolutely did that here in game 1.
Yeah, I'll save us the trouble of the conversation we like to have later in these post-game scenarios. Tarzan should be the MVP, should be a unanimous MVP, like we've seen Mr. Assum already claim a couple of times this split. Tarzan, what a performance. Very excited to see him kind of return to, like you mentioned, the MVP kind of caliber play he can bring, because especially, watching him in that BLG series, like, I can't get the vision out of my mind from that game 2. That Baron flip that really ends the game where, like, he's just living in his own world. He, like, flashes out of the pit because he's about to die, and he just stands there recalling his entire team, like, gets incinerated. That felt like a low that it's good to see Tarzan already return back to form from.
They need him. I mean, that's fair to say. I've been very vocal on record talking about how AL goes as Tarzan and Kael go. I like the other players on this team. Flandre, Shanks has been really consistent in the mid lane. Hope can have his moments, but at the end of the day, like, this team goes as Tarzan goes. If he's going to be able to get advantages and leads in the jungle, this is going to be one of the scariest teams in the league. The fact that they've not been able to do that consistently is why they've been in the position that they've been in. But in this game against Ninjas in Pyjamas, when they needed to be able to get out into an early lead, because as a reminder, both of these comps don't really scale well. Like, you can't really, sit here and go, oh, well, at least we have the late game. You either have the gold lead or you don't. Going into the back end here, Tarzan made sure that they were the team that was controlling the game with that Jarvan and really maximized the amount of pressure that you could have on the map.
Yeah, and despite the fact that this game for NIP goes decently similar to a lot of their win cons like you talked about, it's awesome getting really far ahead. We did feel like there were some draft discrepancies from NIP, but this, for me, towards the end of the game, was the showing of why NIP, maybe their ceiling is a bit more capped, lower than most teams. Their solo lanes are just not that reliable up against top-level competition. Tarzan does really well this game, but, Flandre has that big clutch play, keeping himself alive before that one Drake fight. You mentioned Shanks plays really well this game. I felt like those two really blew out their counterparts out of the water towards the later phase, and we saw that really come to fruition for AL to get this win.
Shanks had a terrific game on Annie, and I'll be honest, Shanks has really been the rock of this team throughout a lot of this split. From a gameplay perspective, he's the only one that's winning lane consistently at the moment, with bot and top kind of being very up in the air. It's really good to see that this team can still play around the fact that he is one of the best facilitative mid laners in the game right now. Hope, obviously, 25.2k damage is awesome considering how bad his early game was, but Shanks being tied for the most amount of damage on the team as an Annie, really important for AL. Tarzan's obviously going to get a lot of the praise, but a lot of what he was doing in the late game was cataclysming down and hoping and praying that the rest of his team could follow up. That's exactly what they did.
And that's all you can really do with Jarvan once we get to 5v5s, right? No matter how much of a lead you got. Tarzan trusting his teammates, them able to bring it home. Guwon, 10k damage, very quiet. I again kind of want to use this as a mechanism to praise Tarzan even further. He was able to, catch Guwon aggressively trying to invade his camps. That's something Guwon has done to a lot of junglers of recent and gotten away with, so props once again to Tarzan for kind of, seeing tape on this guy and recognizing, hey, I'm expecting him to look for something here after a 3 camp. Shanks, be ready to punish. I'm going to look to punish. And that's what really set Tarzan off to the races and, more importantly, kept Guwon way behind pace this entire game.
I mean, that was a huge mistake from Guwon. You just can't really be doing that. He had already burned Flash in that level 1 exchange, so he didn't really have any escape tool, and then he dashes in. It's really just not something that you can do on the Xin Zhao, and that's the kind of thing that gets punished a lot more against these top-tier teams. We've talked about Assum and Zhuo being really important. Zhuo, obviously, a little less so in this game, but Assum, 100% KP. He really was the entire team for NIP in this one. Unfortunately, like you said, Guwon, not very effective. Hoya, not very effective on the Rumble on the top side, who's really important for the damage in the late game on this comp. It was the ancillary pieces for Ninjas in Pyjamas that just didn't get a chance to step up today, where AL really just got to outplay them and, really use that topside advantage to push the game into their favor.
Zhuo's Nautilus makes a lot of these early game plays work for NIP well, but I can't just help Kman thinking it's a rare draft where Karma got left up. How much easier of a front to back could you have played this game if you had Zhuo and Karma?
I mean, the whole game, that was my thought. It's just like, man, can you imagine how this game goes if they have Karma instead of Nautilus? Like, It is so different if they end up having that champion. Not only can you push that Jhin lead early significantly more in the 2v2, but you also get more, like, the point of picking Nautilus is you are better going forward. NIP never went forward. They never went. They
didn't
always
need
were going
to,
backwards
really.
in this game. Yeah, no. AL had Tarzan diving in on Jarvan and Flandre trying to ult the backline. They were always going to be the team that was moving forward. If you have Karma moving backwards with a Jhin to be able to keep him safer and to increase his movement speed and allow him to be kind of a huge nuisance on the back end of these fights, I don't know, man. You're looking at a very different game, in my opinion. I really do think the Nautilus ended up being the biggest problem in draft, and it's something I really hope to see this team rectify. I think engaged supports are, you know, shaky at best in the meta right now, and this was clearly a case where I think they got punished for it.
Very clear win here for AL, but definitely signs that NIP could have won this game themselves through Assum. So, Kman, I mean, how much is your confidence rising that we could have a Game 3 tonight? Because despite NIP's loss, I still think they had a classic showing of what got them to this 3-1 point so far through Split 2.
I don't think we saw anything in that game that would indicate that NIP is different than what we thought they were, right? I think that is the statement that I will give, is they still are the team we think they are. Assum was great. I mean, he lived up to his namesake, as I said in that game, where he really was able to generate big leads, even with this Jhin Nautilus lane that people would consider much weaker. I mean, he was up 3,000 gold in the laning phase. He was dominating that matchup, up 50 CS, like just really running the Rift in terms of the way he played it. He can do it on Jhin and Nautilus. He can probably do it on any bot lane, as long as you're able to play around him more efficiently. The problem in this game wasn't that you didn't get a gold lead. The problem was that you played the fights in the mid game poorly and that your jungler was kind of running it down. As long as you're able to clean those things up, I think things are going to be very playable. This was a winnable game for NIP, despite all the flaws.
Definitely was a losable game for AL as well. I'm just going to wait on Tarzan likely to get his MVP award. It was important to remind anybody that has, you know, kind of shown up a bit later into this series, the stakes that we outlined earlier for this matchup, right? NIP have AL, Top Esports, and BLG to play this week. Kman, you outlined that if they can come away with one series win across those three, you know, really adds confidence to the floor of this team. And also, standings-wise, would put them still in the pack with AL and JDG regardless of where they end up finishing. And there's the Tarzan MVP like we were expecting.
96% kill participation. I mean, like, what do you want me to say? Like, this guy was everything for AL across the entire map. You can talk about Shanks doing a great job to follow up. The Annie was good because the Jarvan could dive in. And the same thing for Ashe. Totally. Those Ashe arrows were relevant because the Jarvan could follow up. Everything ended up with Tarzan being the most relevant player on the Rift. There was no question for me on who MVP was going to be, but you're absolutely right. Like, this is a series now that you have to really start locking in. NIP, we looked at their schedule. It's Top Esports and Billy Gaming after this. Like, it does not get easier. This is your shot to not go 0-3 in week number 4, and that starts in game number 2.
The electrifying NIP temperature gauge has been aptly sizzled down by AL, but this series has a lot more in store, and you best bet that NIP are going to find a way to fight back here nonetheless. Game 2 draft, they will have first selection, whether they want blue or red side, first pick or not. All of that in the cards for them as they try to climb back from an 0-1 series deficit. Anyone's legend versus